Greetings, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. Jan Michael here. You know, I think we've all imagined what our fairy tale love life would look like if it were to come true, or had come true. And I don't think Anora would be anybody's. Though I'm so glad Sean Baker thought of it, because what we ultimately got here is an experience I don't think many of us are gonna be forgetting anytime soon.
Annie, I got a kid who wants someone who speaks Russian. Let's go.
No, I'm eating my food.
You're killing me. He's a spender. Come on, let's go.
Sean Baker has had quite a fascinating filmography thus far. His films typically receive critical acclaim and the performers are often award-worthy. But apart from a lone Best Supporting Actor nomination for Willem Dafoe for The Florida Project, Sean's films don't typically really get any Oscar love. Luckily, that finally changed with his newest romantic dramedy, Anora, which tells the story of a stripper and the son of a wealthy Russian oligarch who build a relationship, get married, and then have to face the aftermath of that decision. When I first saw the trailer for Anora, I thought it was actually building up to something dark. Like, it had all the staples of a horror film, like where the first half is this like romantic comedy, you think it's sweet, and then it turns into like this nightmare experience for the second half. And technically it does, just not in the way that you think it will, which, by the way, is probably the biggest compliment that I can give Anora, is that it takes some wild swings. Pun intended for those who have seen the film. Right front and center is Mikey Madison, playing the titular character. And she's a fucking firecracker. You already know by the start of the movie, she is someone who doesn't take crap from anyone. But as she finds herself falling in love and softening up, the movie actually makes us forget about that fact. Until all hell breaks loose, that is. After that, she takes control and doesn't let up. To me, the most impressive thing is that you have a character that you know is difficult to interact with. You probably know someone or have known people like this in your life. And Mikey is able to breathe this humanity in her, making her sympathetic but not weak. She was already good in the scenes leading up to that midway point, but what she does with her performance in the second half is fantastic. There was a reason she was seen as the frontrunner for the Oscar for such a long time. And Mikey is just one facet of the performances on display here. The supporting cast all do amazing jobs as well. You have her a cocky but almost kind of charming husband played by Mark Edelstein. You have the gruff but soft-hearted Russian bodyguard played by Yura Borisov. And you even have the comedic relief played by Karen Karagulian, who doesn't really get any serious moments, but his comedic timing is just so good that he's also firing on all cylinders. You feel for these characters, you get annoyed with these characters, but no matter what they're doing, they leave an impact. And I still remember them very vividly, despite it being some time since I've last seen the film. That being said, I do have a problem with the characters and casting of Anora's husband's parents. Throughout the entirety of the film, everyone is building them up to be these super serious, no-nonsense characters that are going to bring down the hammer and shut everything down. And they do, but not in the way that I feel the film is trying to portray them as. I mean, they lacked punch. And in the case of Daria Ekamasova, I feel she was miscast. She's supposed to be this force that is able to hold her own against Anora, but the delivery comes off forced. And I never felt any danger or intimidation from her performance. If anything, it came off as more comedic, which I don't think was the intention. And it did hurt her sections of the film. It's a shame because I think everyone else is fantastic, so I'm just not sure what happened here. Another problem I had, personally, with the film was just how long that middle section is. Like, when all hell breaks loose, it takes quite some time to resolve that part of the plot. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some really freaking funny moments in this section, plus this is where the rest of the cast really gets their time to shine, but I think it drags on way too long. Though, my wife did say that as the frustration grew, it probably was mirroring the frustration of the characters in the film, and granted, I understand why that choice would be made, but that doesn't change the fact that we also kind of get frustrated and bored. Or at least I did. I can't say I've heard too many people complain about this midsection, although I have heard rumblings here or there. But it is something where I was like, okay, how much longer we got to go with this? Lastly, and there's really no other way to say this, the character Anora is annoying at points. It's part of who she is, and the whole finding humanity in her wouldn't be as impactful without some kinks in her personality. But there were moments I needed a break from her, and as she is the central focus throughout the whole film, there isn't a whole lot of those moments. Apart from that, though, I do think the film is great, and on a technical scale, I really like Sean's directing. The way the camera glided actually accentuated a lot of the edits in the film, which kudos, because this is one of the films nominated for film editing that I actually remember the editing, so there's that for you. I also think Sean knows how to deliver a comedic moment with just the camera alone. There's times where characters aren't even saying anything funny, but the film will pan over to someone or hard cut to someone else, and you're laughing. And on that note, the film is very funny. In fact, it's funnier than I thought it would be, and I found myself laughing way more than I ever expected to, so huge kudos to that. Focusing on the writing a bit more, I think this is exactly how the script needed to be, with the interactions between these characters being some of the highlights of the film. At no point does the dialogue betray who these characters are. There's no one instance of someone being nice one moment and the next them being complete assholes out of nowhere. Every choice, every word is believable to who they are, which is not an easy thing to pull off, especially with comedies where I feel acting oftentimes changes to deliver a punchline a little bit better. Lastly, I should mention the film has a ton of nudity and sex in it. I don't personally care if a film overindulges in these aspects as long as it makes sense to the plot and the film itself, which it definitely does here. I mention it, however, because this is definitely not a film you want to take your parents to go see. In the past, I've learned this lesson the hard way when I decided to take my mother to go see The Wolf of Wall Street in theaters, not knowing exactly how far the film would go. Yeah, don't do that. Anyways, Anora is most definitely living its fairy tale dream. While I do think certain aspects bring the experience down as a whole, there is a ton to appreciate about the film. And as such, I give Anora a 4 out of 5, with the recommendation to see it. Just not with your parents. I can't stress that enough. And that's the first film down. 9 more to go. You know, whenever I start these projects, there's always like an intimidation seeing the hurdle that's in front of me and everything I'm gonna have to go through. Kind of like if you ever go hiking and you're going down a particularly tricky trail and you're kind of getting nervous, like, oh, am I gonna be able to complete this? But by the end of it, it's all worth it and you look back fondly on your work. So, join me on this hike as I review the other 9 films nominated for Best Picture. Until tomorrow, everybody, like always, stay safe out there and have a good one.